about it. And so you probably want to do some kind of introduction, right?
Yeah, some big fancy one.
Don't make me do it.
Come on, Will, put you on the spot. No,
No.
everyone. No. We just call that the intro. That like, hi, welcome back to my grocery adventure. Um, we are back here with my third episode of me telling my story. And for anybody that is tracking on where we're at in my story, you might be thinking like, wow, I don't think they're going to wrap it up in this third episode. Like it's one of those
Maybe
continuous
not.
week kind of things.
Yeah.
I think it's very unlikely that we're going to get to
Okay.
the end right now. So there will likely be more episodes and they may be a little bit later. I was thinking about this morning that it's really not the Carly show.
Mm.
And I want to do the story justice of how it all came to pass. It's a cool story, and I don't think I want to rush it, but I also don't want to air 6, 7 episodes in a row of like the whole life's journey of Carly. So, yeah, maybe this third episode will be it for a little while, but we will finish the story someday, no doubt about it.
I got to say, I don't think your story is very close to being finished. I mean, I don't know you very well. I haven't looked at your driver's license, birth certificate, but you may have quite a bit of story left in front of you, like potentially, hopefully, decades even.
Yeah, yeah. And to like keep telling it as I go, like
Yeah,
I'm still living it right now. This is it,
right.
and a bunch of other things that are going on right now. So the story is still being written. And that's kind of where I ended with every other guest was kind of where are you now? And that
Mhm.
always gets to be a lot harder to talk about because like you're still doing it right now. So yeah, I mean,
Right.
I think we'll come back with multiple guests hopefully as we continue doing this for some years. We'll get back to
I
everything.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yes, really
yeah,
interesting stuff.
I'm really not in a rush. So yeah, we're gonna tell some more of the stories, some of my favorite part of my stories today in this episode. um yeah, and I think let's dive right into it.
Well, let's do, but before we do, I just want to mention that like it's January 2nd,
Oh yeah, yeah,
2024,
yeah.
right?
Hey.
So happy New Year. I know that this isn't going to be aired for a while, but as we're as we're recording the episode today, we are just entering into a brand new year full of
Mm.
opportunities and possibilities. And so I don't know, that tends to affect my mindset. I don't know if it does yours.
I get
Um,
very nostalgic. Yeah.
Nostalgic, interesting. I think I might be more of a like excited about the year ahead and not so much nostalgic about prior years. But either way, these, first week of the year, it tends to maybe put me in a different mindset, and maybe you, and maybe your viewers and listeners too. I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta
But happy
think.
New Year.
Yeah, thank you for remembering that and situating that because it definitely does. I've been well in the last, what's it been, maybe 4 weeks of recording the first 2 episodes every couple weeks. And
Right.
so recounting my story anyway, going into the end of the year and preparing for today, like I think that might be why I normally am not a very nostalgic person, more future oriented, but this time of year, it's like I always end up looking back and thinking like, wow, look at how far when you just walk one step at a time, like how far you
Mm,
can travel in such a short
it's
amount of time. It's phenomenal.
incredible.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is it? I think it was a Bill Gates saying that people always overestimate what they can do in a year, and they always underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So,
I love that. I love that so much.
yeah,
The steps that I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, like the steps that we can take every day, they're going to get you like a millimeter a day. Like you're making like such teeny little
yeah,
progress that it's just not sexy at all. That like people are like,
right.
why am I going to do that? Because like it's only this little bit. And it's like, yeah, but if you'll do that for every day for a year, you've got like a whole foot of progress. And if
Yeah,
you do that
that's
every day
right.
for 10 years,
Yeah,
you're really over there now,
yeah,
like living somebody else's life that like this person
sure.
back here did not have access to that stuff.
That's right.
But if you don't take the everyday little millimeter step, you're never going to get over there.
Got to grind.
Well, and like, is it automatically a grind to take steps every day? I really don't
Oh,
like that
yeah.
word. So like
Not in a bad word. I mean, I guess the word can have different connotations for different folks.
what's your
Yeah.
connotation?
I don't know. I like it. I
Yeah.
consider myself a bit of a grinder. I do some.
Yeah.
I work. I think it comes from, and I could be wrong, but maybe video game culture. And so I have a 12-year-old kid who plays video games, and so sometimes the things that you do to kind of bank points or bank like privileges for the future, they call that grinding.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
see, I learned something. I'm so glad I asked because my prejudice towards this word is more like hustle culture
Oh,
based,
uh-huh.
where it's like a point of pride that like you're hustling. And I'm like,
Oh,
dude, just being busy to be busy does not do anything for me. But what you're
yeah.
describing of like, I'm investing, I make
Hmm.
investments of time every day,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
looking at very specific things every day.
yeah,
And so, yeah, maybe I am grinding and I didn't even know about it.
yeah. In some manner of speaking.
Yeah.
So we,
Yeah.
we got to get back to your story because
Okay,
we could
let's
just
do
talk
it.
about this stuff all day.
I
And so
know.
where
I'm
we
so
left
pumped.
off, you were doing a job that you were loving a lot, and not only that, but just the way you were describing it, I don't think you were doing this in a self-aggrandizing way, but man, it just sounded like something that you were really, really perfectly suited to.
That's just
Um,
how it felt at the time. You
well,
know?
I imagine it still probably feels like you were really well suited to it. And I don't know. I have this sort of framework about careers that kind of goes in stages. And so a lot of times I think when you're in the earlier part of your career, let's say up until around your mid 30s, like the only thing that matters is acquiring skills. Like you're probably not going to get paid your worth, right? If you're lucky, here's what you need and here's what you're worth, and you'll get paid somewhere in between there. So like at least you can live and get through to it. But like the early career, I just think it's hard to be recognized and valued appropriately.
Mm.
And so you're in this spot, early career, and you're actually, it seems really skilled and really suited to what you're doing. And then what happened? You had to go. The business wanted you to not do that. Is that right?
Yeah,
They wanted you to
the
do something
business
different.
needs you to go over here. The business needs you here. And like that was there's an opening on this other team. And so the business needs this opening filled. And I am the best, most available candidate for filling that position at this time. And
Could you
that
have
was
said no? Was
no,
that an option? Okay.
no, 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 very similar to what you described about Target and how
Oh, uh-huh.
they very much valued a person's loyalty to the company. Like those were the people that were getting moved up, but often they got moved up so they could go run the New Zealand office or something,
Right.
like
Yeah.
they're shipped out. And
Yeah.
I wasn't really one of those, and I really just wanted to stay doing what I was doing, but the business needs you here. And I did try to stay where I was, and that was not happening. And so I just went. I'm like, okay, the business needs me over here. It's been 2 years. Let me go learn something else. And the team that they moved me to was like my point of contact before in my role before. I was like facing the teams that supported the clients, and then on this side I have the team, the project management, or sorry, product management teams that support like the developers. They are the product managers. They're responsible for like all the changes that happen to their products. So that was the team that they moved me into, was like, I'm going to be a product manager now. I'm responsible for not what the client wants, but I'm responsible for the tool itself and managing the change process to that tool, making sure that we're not going to mess anything up when we go adding stuff to it that people might want.
And so that could be a good fit. Ostensibly, if you talked to me at the time, I would have said, well, that's okay. Give it a
Give it
shot.
a,
See what
give it a
happens.
try. See what
Could be
happens.
fun. You
Yeah.
might be good at that too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I kind of got myself there. My resentment was maybe only low key, and I went
Mhm.
in with like mostly an open attitude. It didn't last very long though. I got real pissed off real quick because the business needs me over there, and what they needed me to do, they had me shadow other product managers to see what they do for 8 weeks. For 8 weeks, they had me sit at other people's desks and watch them work, watch them explain what they're doing.
I have this image of you as somebody who, from all of our discussions, you like to learn,
Oh, I love it.
but you're kind of an impatient learner,
Oh,
I
I'm very
think.
impatient.
You don't, if you've learned something, then you want to apply it and then you want to learn the next thing. You don't just want to sit there for 8 weeks if you're not learning the last seven of them.
I didn't I didn't learn a whole lot most of the time,
Hmm.
because when the product managers have questions about their own products that they manage, they go to CDQA, the role that I had before, because they're more in the system. So I knew the system. I mean, I was still basically serving in that role of like, even though now I'm a product manager, they're still coming to me for help with their tools, because
Mm.
I still know more about their product than they do, because I have a client that uses it every day. So every
Okay.
time something breaks, I'm the one who has to handle fixing it. I sat
Hmm.
next to the developer and showed him exactly what was wrong. I showed him exactly what it was supposed to do. Like, I felt like I learned nothing for eight
Uh,
weeks and they had me just sit there. And so that's where, before we started recording, I asked Will how he felt about quiet quitting. Um, and he had a very encouraging response. We'll just say that, as far as he understands why an employee may not just want to give their all, give their all, give their all, because I am an extremely hard worker. And so it was very confronting, maybe, in my identity to have me just sit there for eight
oh,
weeks
hmm.
and like, I don't get to be responsible for anything. I don't know enough yet to have products assigned to me. I need to finish my training, the same training that they would put literally anybody through. They customized it not at all for like the level of knowledge that I'm bringing to the position. And that just really pissed me off. And so they gave me nothing to do. So what I started doing was like, I mean, they've got me sitting at this person's desk for an hour in the morning and this person's desk for an hour in the afternoon. That's leaving like 6 hours of the day open for what? For studying the system, for learning the system. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I started going outside. Across the street from the office, there was this cemetery. And I would just like walk for hours in that cemetery. And then it's like, oh, time for lunch. So I'd go back inside and like show my face, like, I'm going to lunch, guys. Okay, bye. And then come back from lunch and show my face and then go back to the cemetery and just walk and walk and walk and walk. It was so much better than sitting at my desk. They didn't need me to
I
do anything. The business
for
needs you here. I'm like, for
for
what? It
for narrative purposes, I must say I'm really glad that it was a cemetery. That adds a lot to the
was
story,
such a
actually.
beautiful cemetery. It was huge. I mean, this is like in uptown Dallas. So
Okay.
the fact that there's like, I don't know how many city blocks of cemetery, there's all of these streets that have names like
Yeah.
hope and belief and dream. And you just like walk in the waffle pattern of
Yeah.
streets, like lining this cemetery. And there were old, like 150, 200-year old graves there. It was
Interesting.
just so peaceful. And
I
so yeah,
bet.
they didn't need me, so I kept myself occupied. And that was, the probably 7 or 8 months that I was on that position. That's what I did.
What?
Yeah.
7 or 8 months? I thought you said it was like an 8 week training
That was the
program.
training. And then they gave me my products. So here's a list
Oh,
of the products that you're responsible for.
but it still wasn't more challenging.
It was like a couple hours a week to do what they needed me to do. And so then I'm like, what? Why am I here? You took away my favorite job. You put me here. You gave me nothing to do. And you still want to pay me six figures? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. I'm going to go walk in the cemetery some more. And they promoted me. The next job
Wow.
was a promotion.
That is kind of stunning. I mean,
Bonkers.
like it feels like the company that shall remain nameless just didn't do a very good job of like managing the resource that is their people, that is some
Yeah.
of their best people.
Yeah.
Like, that's really interesting. I mean, and not surprising, to be honest. I mean, I think that that's not terribly unusual, especially if you get kind of outside of my expertise of, production, uh, um, factory production and distribution and logistics, like in those worlds, it's actually pretty easy to measure the productivity of people. And I think once you get outside of that, it gets a lot harder. And so, yeah, that's really kind of stunning that they would
Yeah.
think that they were doing themselves good and doing your career a service by moving you from this point to the walking around the cemetery job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And same, like we talked about last time, like I probably would still be there if not for
Mm,
this little chunk of what happened. Like maybe eventually I would have wanted to expand and find something else, but like it was like when they did that, and then for months I am quiet quitting because there's like nothing better to do. It showed me like this company shouldn't be in charge of how I spend my time. You know,
that is a really good way to say it. Yeah. They
they're not
shouldn't be in charge
qualified.
of how you spend their time. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be in charge of how you develop professionally. They just shouldn't be.
They
You
shouldn't
can't
be in
be an
charge.
indentured servant to that company. And that's a lot of times how, especially in earlier career, that people tend to view their jobs. I mean, they kind of allow the companies to turn them into a form of indentured servitude in a weird way.
Yeah.
So they try to do that. They give you maybe a little bit, not enough to do, not enough to learn, too much freedom. I guess I'm assuming here, but that 7 or 8 months that you spent walking around the cemetery probably was the beginning of the end of your time with that company, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because after that, like I said, they did promote me again. I think it was like a lateral move for me to go from CDQA to product manager. And then they
Mhm.
promoted me again like 6, 7 months later and gave me a different role, which I will give them credit for because usually they leave you there for a year, 2 years, like in the job they put you in. And I think they could tell that I'm not happy. Like you're freaking wasting me. And there's not
Mm.
many other things that are going to make me matter than wasting my time. So they gave me my last job there where I reported to a VP. Her name was Adrian. I am so glad that I stayed as long as I did, that I didn't just quit immediately in the quiet quitting phase, that I did stick it out a little bit because working for Adrian was a pleasure, was a delight. She was such a strategic thinking visionary. And so getting to report to her, getting to like show her my work and then hear her insights, hear her like, oh, what about this? Like, oh, I love how you added that. That makes me think about this. And like she was like, yeah, I mean, I feel like she brought me even more out of my shell, like reminiscent of the CDQA role. And that was basically what it was like this hybrid between CDQA and product manager, where they had this one tool that they had kind of built over the course of like still figuring out what it was. And they wanted to do a ground up rebuild where they separated it into 4 different tools. And so that was my project, was like, we have the functionality and that needs to not be interrupted, but we're also going to completely hack it apart and reorganize everything. So I did that for the last like 7 or 8 months that I was there. And that project wasn't finished when I left. Um, how I decided to leave, like, so interesting because for a couple months at the end of 2016, I was downloading this message of like, your business is ready for you. And I'm over here like, wait, what business? And it's like, your
Hmm.
business is ready for you. Really? What kind? Your business is ready for you. With who? Your business is ready for you. Well, who do I ask about it? Your business is ready for you. And like I wouldn't leap because the way the software company structured their pay, their compensation, it's like you got like a 15 to 20% chunk of your salary through your annual bonus at the end of
Oof,
the
yeah.
year that was based on performance. And so, I mean, it's a chunk of change that like I'm sitting there thinking like I am going to leave soon, but I'm going to make sure I get that because I want to make sure I get that. I mentioned Adrian and how awesome it was to work for her and how much I respected her because that ended up being the reason why I quit right before the bonuses. I didn't wait for my bonus because I found out that in her department, there was maybe like 60, 70 people in her department, 8 people who were at supervisor level. And that was where I was, even though I was managing a project, not people. I found out that like there's, I can't remember if it was four, like 3 in addition to me or 4 in addition to me that were planning a January 2nd exit. So, like, all on the same day, like half of her supervisors that manage this 70-person team are all walking out on the same day. And the guy that told me about it, he was like low key, like excited to kind of screw her. He's like, yeah, there's a bunch of us. Like, oh, I'm glad you're doing it too. And that just like did not sit well with me. That like you're gonna gang up on her on purpose. Like she's the best one here. Like she's so awesome. And so it ended up being like December 12th or whatever, and the bonuses would have been on the last pay period of the year. And I sat her down and I was like, I didn't say anything about anybody else, but I said, I have really appreciated working with you. I respect you a lot. And I did not want to leave you with this project right in the middle of things. January 2nd would mean that like all the quarterly rotations are already done. All the positions that need filled have been filled. And then I show up and quit. And now you got to go rework all the plans and everything to find somebody to keep my projects going. I did not want to put her in that position. So I turned in
Wait
my
a minute.
notice.
Hold on.
Okay.
Before we started recording, you asked me, how do you feel about quiet quitting? And I was
Oh,
like, hey man, company, you don't owe them a darn thing ever.
yes.
Like,
Yes.
and I gave a couple of examples of it. And you were like, oh, good, because I wouldn't want you to think less of me. And now here you tell me a story where it sounds like you voluntarily gave up 15 to 20% bonus on a 6-figure salary just to quit a little early, just to not inconvenience this person who
Mm-hmm.
you respected,
Mm-hmm.
but frankly, who's managing for a company that's not doing a good job of managing their human resource. I mean, in fact, it sounds like they're doing a preposterously bad job of it if they're putting themselves in a position where half of the half of the supervisory staff in this part of the company is quitting. Like, it wasn't just you. Like, this is a systematic comedy of errors on their part,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And so you gave up that kind of money just to kind of do somebody a little bit of favor, and you're worried how that's gonna reflect on you.
Well, ish. Yeah. And I will say that I risked giving it up.
Did they pay you anyway?
Yes, they did.
That's good.
Because they
They should have.
appreciated the integrity of coming
Yeah.
to them and giving them the chance to figure it out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh no, you've earned this and it's yours. We're still going to give it to you. And the decision for me was not about the company. Like it was such a brand new thing that I was working for a boss. I guess like Dr. Vincent comes to mind as far as like working for a boss that I really respected. Dr. Vincent, that was grad school. And then here we are 5.5 years later, and I finally work for Adrienne. And
Yeah.
like she was she is just a great person in general. And I really, really enjoyed working for her. And I felt like, coming back to like decades or years or whatever, like literally the question that I asked myself was like, in 20 years, how much is this, $15,000-$20,000 gonna mean to you versus in 20 years, you being the kind of person that like isn't considerate of people that like you really respect and have enjoyed collaborating with. Like I felt like for me, it was kind of a character defining moment of like, it really isn't about them. It's about me. And am I going to like grab the bag and run and like flip the bird and like, F you guys, like you're on your own. And like, had I quit during the quiet quitting phase, had it still been like that, yes, that is absolutely what I would have done. But I wasn't quitting to that manager. I was quitting to Adrienne. I
That
was,
makes some sense to me. I mean, in fact, they say in HR management that people don't quit the company; they quit their boss. And it sounds like the that it, that's a generalization. It was clearly not true for you. And so, in quitting the company, it was unfortunate that you had to quit your boss, but you wanted to do your best to make it kind of soften the blow to somebody that you liked and respected. I can get behind that.
yeah, yeah. And like, I didn't I mean, so many things clicked together for me to make that decision. I mean, if that guy hadn't told me that he's quitting on January 2nd and so are these other ones, and he was over there like all like getting off on how it was going to hurt her, like that
Yeah,
just was gross to me. I
yeah.
just couldn't even risk her thinking that like I was part of that because I'm not. I don't agree with that kind of like sticking it to her. Like there's just got to be a better way, you know?
But
Like
boy, that does say something about kind of the overall misuse of human resources that the company was engaged in. Not so much Adrian, but to have that many people, you know,
with some
it's
hostility. Like
quite a bit. Yeah,
yeah,
glee, gleefully making things really difficult.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
and teaming up, making a
yeah,
coordinated attack. And I was like, I am not about that, you know. Like I'm leaving, but I'm doing it because my business is ready for me and I've been being told this for 2 months and I'm ready. It was just a matter of like January 2nd or
yeah.
December 12th. And the other thing, they paid me my bonus. They paid me 2 weeks. They kept me for 1 day and that was it.
Oh, that's cool. Very
So, I
good.
mean, by Christmas, I'm completely free. I'm like free and clear and get to
So
celebrate.
you're in Dallas and you're completely free and clear, right?
Mhm.
And so, was your business ready for you? I mean, were the candles flickering and like, did you start it on December 26th or what?
Isn't that the temptation? Wouldn't that make for just the easiest story in the world? No. It was 5 months later before my business would appear. In those 5 months, though, I did entertain one job offer and two startup company offers that like they just kind of were magnetized to me. Every time one came, I was like, see, it's happening. And those first few were just for me to get to say, no, not like that. That has too much of this or not enough of this or whatever, just kind of like really getting clear on what I wanted. And then, yeah, it was 5 months later, and I got invited to be the partner in the grocery store business, and that whole thing took off. But those 5 months of waiting to see if I had, leapt off the cliff and could I fly or was I going to like smack my face on the bottom? I was ready for either one. I was ready to let it take a whole year. I had my kiss my ass fund, as my friend Taylor calls it. I saved and saved and saved and saved while they wanted to pay me like that to do nothing, especially those last like year and a half. The madder I got, the more I saved, the less I spent. Because I'm like, I am not going to be here for very much longer. And I need as many little acorns in my pocket as I can get.
So, chronologically speaking, when was the cancellation of the wedding in that? Was it before that year and a half? You were
Yes.
still in the
Well,
CDQA
no,
position?
I guess it would have been August, September of 2015 was when I canceled the wedding, was supposed to get married in September of 2015. And then I quit in December of 2016.
Okay.
So, yes, the last year and a half included both jobs, the quiet quitting, canceling my wedding, like just this is not working for me. Okay. Like I
Yeah.
just canceled a bunch of things. And
Well, the funny thing is that for all external observations, I think most people would say, wow, Carly's got this great job. She's about to get married. Like, wow, things are really working. And something within you was saying, no, it's not actually. It's not working very well at all.
yeah, a quote that I found during that time that really resonated with me was build a life that feels good on the inside, not one that looks nice on the outside. Because
Yeah.
all the time people were, especially my engagement ring, it was nice, and people all the time were like, oh my gosh, your ring's so pretty, you're so lucky, blah blah blah. And on the inside I'm like, that is just a
Get
huge
it off me.
distraction. Like
Ah.
it's a lie. it's so
Yeah.
sparkly and on the inside is not sparkly. Okay. Like, and so yeah, it was through those couple years of kind of all of that that intention really got seated in pretty deeply, that like I want to enjoy my life, not have it impress other people. If it
Yeah.
impresses other people, that's a bonus, but like I'm gonna make sure that it's nice for me first. And that was definitely like as I was leaving the software company, kind of where I was in my life.
I will tell you, it took me some time to kind of get to that place.
Totally.
You know, just whatever the kind of reasons are. I mean, the way that one grows up, and yeah, it's really easy to think that it's important to impress other people, and yeah,
It's a
tends to
it's
drag people in the wrong direction, probably.
well, and like wrong direction. I've made peace with the 5.5 years I spent at the software company because of how well I saved my money while I was there. I mean, it was a life-changing opportunity to get to make that kind of money so early in my career that let me build my kiss my ass fund a couple of times and then
Mhm.
walk away and do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like the 5 months of traveling, I did travel, so that cost a little bit of money, but I also wasn't working. And then building Cecil K's, once we get there, I mean, I didn't get paid for the first 8 months of doing that. So that
Is
was,
that all? Wow, you did good.
well, I was like, dude, like at some point, like I gotta pay my mortgage. I need
Right?
to, the grocery stores got me pretty covered in food, but like I like electricity, I like
It's
running
fun, yeah.
water, like
Mhm.
I have other needs. So yeah, the salary came on when it could, and when we got like super close to opening, and it's like, okay, we can see cash flows starting, and let's.
Electric utilities tend to frown on offers to barter food for your electricity
They're not
in the
into it.
20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they like the paper money and or the
Yeah.
data on the screen or whatever they're doing over there.
Yes,
That's fine.
exactly.
That's their way. So I need just a little bit of money. But yeah, that was over a year that I was able to like fund my life and have the freedom to point myself where I wanted to be. And even now, to some extent, like that freedom is still allowing me to
Yeah.
do what I'm doing. And the experiment continues of Carly pointing herself where she wants to be and not really worrying about, like, is this the most lucrative path that I could be walking? That is so not my metric anymore,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So
So your business wasn't quite ready for you, but it was sort of close to being ready for you.
ready
How
enough.
in the heck? I mean, that's a big change. Like,
Mm.
I'm not even sure how to ask you to walk us from wild on the streets in, Dallas, Texas, having recently removed yourself from a software company to Cecil K's. And in fact, I don't. I'm sure I'm like many of your viewers and listeners. Like I don't know, and like I'm not sure what exactly this was. How did you get there? What was it, and how did you get there? How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So I gotta say, like going home from the exit interview at the software company, they like at the exit interview, they like strip off like my integration with my phone. So like my email's not on my phone anymore, my calendar's not on my phone anymore. And so I go home from the exit interview. It's a Friday, and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I look at my calendar, which for me is like all day every day at this point, and I look at it, there's nothing on there, and you just like page forward for months and years and decades, and there's nothing on there, and like
Gosh, that would be awesome.
it's the hardest feeling I've ever personally felt. it
Really?
it's how I have such a passion for this whole like retirement of the baby boomers, and like they don't want to make plans for it because they're just kind of pushing it off and stuff, and like sitting there on that day with nothing on the horizon for decades, like it was such an awful feeling. It was like
Wow.
suffocating and smothering and dark, and what did I just do? Like it was so rough those first like week or two. It was hard. I wasn't ready for that. I really wasn't. I didn't
Okay.
think it would be like that. I thought it would be
Yeah.
awesome, like, oh man, like, and there have been other times since then where like, okay, I'm free. There's nothing. And I'm like, this is great. But like that
Mhm.
one, I mean, I was working still, on my things and to have nothing. Nobody needs me. Nobody has any
Okay.
questions.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody cares if you woke up today. Nobody's gonna find
Yeah.
you being eaten by your cat if you don't make it. Like, I mean, you're just in there. Like nobody, you got no ties to anything.
That's really interesting. And this is your story, not mine, but it does kind of bring to mind like the biggest transitions in my life, like the place I worked for 17 years, I left on a Friday because I had a new job that started on Monday. And then when I left there, I left on a Friday because I had a new job that started on Monday. I mean, and then when as I've backed away from the various SBDC and KU commitments, it's in part because the commitments were already there in my valuation practice and in other things. So yes, my first thought was, wow, that would be amazing. Oh my gosh, I would love an empty calendar.
You
But
especially wouldn't. I don't think
I
of
don't
all
know.
people,
You
you
might
would
be
like it
right.
the least.
You might be right.
Yeah.
You might be right.
I
Okay.
wanted to take a year off. I was
Mhm.
psyched. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, the depression was real. Like that
Wow.
comes first. So
Okay.
again, that's a big piece of my heart around, you know, transition planners are like baby boomers need to get on the ball. And
Hmm.
I'm over here like you're pushing them off a cliff and they're scared. And I get that because
Hmm.
it's a fall. It's a like you're going to sink first and then you're going to learn to swim in your
Hmm.
newfound freedom. But like that's going to take time. And like how many threads,
Harder for a baby boomer because how old were you at that time?
28,
Right. So
29.
if you're,
Yeah.
and I work with business owners who are transitioning into retirement, and the things that we tell them that they need, you need to understand how much you need to retire. You need to understand the value of your assets, including your business, so you can
Mm-hmm.
fill in gaps. And then the third and most important thing is you need to understand what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I remember when I learned that from the succession planning curriculum, I was like, well, soft skill stuff, whatever. But as I've applied it, there couldn't be a more important thing. And I could give you dozens of examples of how not understanding that has led to like incomplete transitions that didn't work out very well, and really truly like bad consequences for folks who don't understand that. What's your new identity?
Right. That's what you're giving up,
Yeah.
like is your identity. And I think again, like you can be like, oh, soft skills, identity, no big deal. It's like,
No,
trust me, that is the center of gravity in your freaking world.
it's
And if you
real.
don't
Yeah.
have one, you're floating through space on a big blue marble and you got
Yeah.
nothing going on. Okay. Like
Hmm.
it was a rough week or two. But right about that time, this is right before Christmas, my friend called me. She had actually gotten laid off by the company 2 months prior, but got a awesome severance package. It was like you get so many $1,000s for every year of service, and she'd been there for like 9 years. So she like put herself back to school. It was absolutely great. But anyway, so she was not working there anymore, and now I'm not working there anymore. And she calls me and she's like, "Hey, do you want to go to Japan and one other country with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, when do we leave?" She's like, "3 days. Are you sure you still want to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So
Cool.
we left right after Christmas, and flew to Tokyo. And then we were in Tokyo for a couple days. And then we flew to Okinawa, which is an island off of the main island of Japan. And that's where her friend was stationed as an army doctor. So we got to stay with her for free right across from the freaking beach. And that's where I was to celebrate New Year's Eve, the end of 2016, wake up first thing 2017, and I'm on a beach in Japan.
Fun.
That was how my year started. And it was like,
What was the other country?
so we did like a week in Okinawa, and then we did a week in Chiang Mai I think that's in like northern Thailand.
Okay. Hmm.
So we
Wow.
flew into, gosh, like I can't remember the name of the main hub. flew into the main hub of Thailand and then went to Chiang Mai. And so then on our way back, it was like something that Lauren wanted to not like check off her bucket list or whatever. She wanted to like fly around the world. So because we had went like this way to Japan and then like over to Thailand, like if you go this way, like we will have come back and flown around the world or whatever.
Oh, uh-huh, yeah.
Such a stupid goal. Such a stupid goal. Like, don't do this just for its own sake. It's not worth it. That flight home was like 53 hours long, 4
Oh,
connections. Otherwise, it was going to be just like stupid expensive or whatever. So, yeah, like 2+ days. And I do not sleep sitting in a chair. That's just not something that my body is going to want to
mhm.
do. And so we had little pockets. There was like one 8-hour layover that we had where we did check into someplace so we could sleep for like 6 hours. And so we had these little pockets
Was
throughout
it
the
like a capsule hotel where you slid into a
basically. Yeah,
drawer or something like
that's
that?
how our Tokyo one was. You
Okay.
just had a curtain at the end of your bunk bed, and like that's what you got for
Mhm.
$40 a night. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Communal bathroom and everything else.
Mhm.
So yeah, on our way
Wow.
back, we had another long layover in Bahrain. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's in the Middle East.
Uh-huh.
And
Mhm.
we left the airport because we were there for like 12 hours. We were like going to leave the airport and go down to like a market and kind of walk around and see, see what was down there. And that is like the main time in my life where I have felt physically unsafe.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like it was just the two of us
Mhm.
together. And we both had on like long sleeves and like full pants, but like neither of us had our heads covered.
Oh,
And
sure.
we stayed for maybe 20, 30 minutes down there. And after the second group of guys started following us, we got back in a cab and went back to the airport. We did not stay down there for very long. And I
Mhm.
don't want to give that place a bad name by any means. It was my
Sure.
only time in a country in the Middle East. And yeah, it was wild, even in just those like 30 minutes. Like I only saw maybe one or two other women, and both of them were with their kids and their husband, and that was it. And me
Mhm.
and Lauren and a bunch of dudes. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is not, we're not doing the right thing. I need to
Yeah.
go back to the airport right now. And even at the airport, like the stink eye coming at us was just like, whoa, dude, whoa. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
enlightening on our way home after the 2.5 weeks of Tokyo and Thailand and all of that. That was like the trip
Yeah.
home.
Wow.
So yeah, that was like my first half of January.
Cool. That
Yeah,
sounds amazing.
it
Great way to
was.
start the year.
It was like really magical. And actually, while I was in Thailand, that was where I got the idea to explore what it would be like to go abroad and teach English as a second language.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah.
And I started looking into places. And, long story short, I was actually on my way to Costa Rica to be a certified ESL teacher when my cousin called and asked me to start the grocery store with him. So if he hadn't done that, I was going to Costa Rica to get certified and to teach English and to live there for a
Ooh,
while and then see what
fun.
happens. So,
That would be
like,
pretty fun too.
yeah, it would have been so awesome. I hope to still get to live in Costa Rica someday, but
Yeah.
wasn't time for that yet. So,
I guess not.
yeah. So that was like my thought when I took the year off was that I'm going to go on adventures. I'm going to say
Uh-huh.
yes to life. I'm going to
Mhm.
travel where I want to go. Whatever kind of inspired idea comes up, let's say yes and see what happens. And so the next invitation came not too long after I got back, where I went with a person that still worked at the software company. They were sending her to Australia for a week to do stuff. And she's like, do you want to buy a plane ticket, share my hotel room? Maybe we hit New Zealand on the way back. And so that's what we did in March. We did 2 weeks of in Sydney for a week. And then we stayed with somebody who worked at the New Zealand office. So we got to stay with her for free, but stayed with her for a few days in New Zealand on our way back from that.
Cool.
So yeah, like all of these trips, I mean, other than that, I'd been to Mexico and Canada, and that's it. And so yeah, starting to go to all of these other places and So
The
for
world is a really big place,
oh
isn't
my
it?
gosh, it
I mean,
is
I
and it
think
isn't. Yeah.
the first time I ever really traveled, the first time I traveled kind of solo outside of the country, I was about that same age, mid 20s, maybe even late 20s. And it was
Mhm.
like, wow. I mean, there are so many ways for people to earn a living in this world. There are so many ways to live that don't resemble mine at all. Like, it was really an eye opening experience.
Like one of the pieces that really comes to mind as you say that that was like really eye opening was in Thailand. My friend and I, we don't speak Thai, and like that
Sure.
language is the first place I've ever been where like
Hmm.
they're not doing you any favors. This is a Thai alphabet on the sign, and
Can't read the signs. Like, yeah,
I got
that's the
nothing.
thing.
Yeah.
In at least if you go to Mexico or even French speaking parts of Canada, like you can kind of read the signs at least a little bit. And in fact, most places even will there be some kind of secondary for English speakers because
Yes.
people cater to us so much. But yeah, I've not been to Thailand, but I have been
Yeah.
to parts of Asia where
They're not
there's
thinking
not
about
even
you. No, they don't
nothing.
have money for English signs. They don't need those.
Yep.
Which I don't blame them at all. But yeah, Tokyo
No.
was like that, where like there's
Tokyo
the
is like that. Yeah,
and
it
they've
is.
got the hey, here you go. Like we're still trying to take care of you guys.
Sort of. I was a little bit surprised when I was in Tokyo at how little of that there was, because it's this big international city. And so
Yeah.
all these other big international cities I'd ever been in were pretty much like, okay, you can figure out how to get around. Tokyo was like, wow. I mean, it was
Mm,
really hard
mm,
for me. I mean, I
yeah.
don't know if you experienced that, but
We got lost a lot just in general in
yeah.
all the places. So yeah,
Yeah.
we were okay with that though. We didn't like have a plan any day. It was just kind of
Yeah.
a wake up in the morning and like what sounds fun right now? Breakfast. Okay,
Hmm.
let's do that. And like when that was over, here comes the next thing.
4 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this big old breakfast and then what sounds fun. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a really fun trip. Both of them, the Australia New Zealand one and the Japan and Thailand one. And so right around that time, I got the idea that so I started listening to a spiritual teacher in July of 2016. So about 6 months before I left the software company, I was looking for guided meditations and I found this spiritual teacher. And so I had started listening to them every morning. And early 2017, I got the idea like, here before too long, it'll be my 1 year anniversary of listening to this speaker. And
Who's
I,
that?
Abraham Hicks is the name of the teacher. And that consciousness is channeled by a lady named Esther Hicks.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. She teaches law of attraction and basically like attracts like. And so the
Okay.
whole point was like, I'm miserable at the software company and my relationship that I'm in at this moment is also not super healthy. And here's the spiritual teacher telling me that like you're getting back what you're putting out. You're getting back
Ooh.
what you're putting out. And I'm like, oh, that's a really bitter pill to swallow that like
Yeah.
I'm the common denominator in all this? Really? Are you sure? I don't think so. That can't be right. So after 6 months of like studying or listening to her every morning, like I had made a lot of like 1 degree turns and kind of implementing like making gratitude lists every day and just some different things that were helping me to feel a lot better. And then I'm noticing like, wow, like people are responding to me very differently than they did before. And maybe there is something to this, like when you put it out there, it comes back to you kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like my intention to basically, like, I know my business is ready for me. Like the voice keeps telling me. And so let's see if it can come to fruition. And anywho, while I'm off work, I decide like it would be really cool to see where is she going to be in July of 2017. And maybe I can like buy tickets and go see her and like see a live show or whatever it is that she's doing. And so I pull up the website, and where is she going to be on the exact day of my anniversary, July 9th, 2016? That's right in the middle of her Alaskan cruise. So I booked a ticket and I went on that Alaskan cruise by myself in July. We left from Seattle, went north to Alaska and then back. And it was the most magical 8 days I have ever lived on this planet, ever.
Wow, that's something.
It was amazing. Why do you say that's something?
I mean, that's just quite a statement of endorsement of the like. I mean, that's a powerful statement.
It was well, I mean, I spent like 4 months looking forward to it. Like I had booked my
Sure.
ticket. And so I had thought many times, like, what's it going to be like?
Mm,
Am I going to meet people? Am I going to spend the whole time by myself? Like I was kind of just ready for whatever.
mhm.
Um, Took a bunch of books with me. That was basically it. And the cabin, like it was a two-person minimum. So either you've got to pay for two people, even though I
Or
don't
have a
have two
roommate that you
people,
don't know. Uh-huh.
or be in the potluck roommate lottery. And so that's what I did. And my roommate was from Hungary, and she was fascinating. By the end, I think we were both ready to not ever see each other again, but we had some really good days, especially in the beginning. And she helped motivate me to not be in the room then by the end of it, when I probably would have been more inclined to just kind of hole up and whatever. I found other
Yeah.
places where I could be. But yeah, it was just like the timing of like no plan, and I would get an idea, and then I would go there and I would meet like the most magical person and have this awesome 3 hour conversation. And then
Mm.
just like never see that person again and like get this other idea, or like walking into dinner and like I see these two ladies, and they look, like maybe a mother and a daughter, like the age gap is there, but like who knows, but they just look like they're having the best time, and they're sitting at a table that's for like a bunch of people, but it's just them. And the maitre d or whatever is like walking me to a table for one, and I tapped him and I'm like, hang on just a second, do you guys mind if I have dinner with you? And I just asked him, and I sat down at their table, and I'm still friends with one of them on Facebook.
Wow, cool.
It was like that was the magic of like, get the idea, follow the idea, watch the magic happen, like
Yeah.
over and over and over and over, and it just got stronger as the days went on. So yeah, that was in July. And so I come back from the cruise to Dallas, having already, right before I left for the cruise, my parents came, we packed out my apartment, and they drove my stuff back to Kansas. And then I went on the cruise, and I came back to Dallas and stayed with my friends for a couple of days, picked my dog up from the Ponderosa Pet Resort or whatever. And we drove to
Mm.
Dallas then a couple of days after I got back from the cruise.
To
Or
Kansas, you mean?
yes, thank you. Drove to
So
Kansas.
then you already knew that you were moving back to Kansas then. Part of kind of
Yes.
being all footloose and fancy free wasn't like maybe I'll stay in Dallas.
Right. Like Dallas is an expensive city, as you can imagine. And
Yeah.
so my lease was up in July, and I knew that's why, like in Thailand, I'm thinking, like, oh, I could be an ESL teacher and that'll take me out of Dallas. Like, I mean, I knew I was going to have
Hmm.
to leave Dallas, because if I'm not going to have an income, I can't afford to just stay here and pay rent.
Sure.
Um, so I knew July would be when I would leave. I just didn't know where I was going. And that's why, like, yeah, getting the Costa Rica plans ready. And then it was the end of April 2017 when my cousin texted me and he's like, hey, can I call you? I want to talk to you about something. And so we had a phone call. He sent me like a little paragraph of like, here's what I want to do. I was an immediate hell yes. And we got started on the business planning then for like May and June, and I made a trip back once or twice during that time. And then we took possession of the grocery store building when I got here in July. And that was when we
Oh,
really hit the ground on like the actual physical remodel. Then for 8 months was when I
okay.
got back. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well,
That's our time.
so
That's
what's
pretty good.
that?
That's an hour. That flew by.
Well, yeah, almost an hour. We got a couple minutes because I think we
Okay.
got I think we got started a little bit late. And so yeah, this seems like an appropriate kind of break point, I guess. But I think I think your viewers and listeners would want to know more about um, like what was it that drew you to it? Why did you say yes? And some of that, like why did you say yes to coming home? Was
Mm-hmm.
that a big part of it? Did you say yes to the notion of your business being ready now? Was that part of it? Was it something, was this a cousin that you've always been really close to, and so it was a yes to family, some combination of all the above, or something different than all of that?
Yeah. No, definitely a combination of all of that. Um, I will say that the offer coming from Chad was especially meaningful to me. The fact that he would want me to be his Mrs. partner meant a lot to me. And so that definitely gave the can I call you and talk to you about this? Like that got my attention like first off because it was him asking. But then there was just something about grocery store that sounded right. I don't really know how to better explain it. Like my whole body was like, yes, like that is exactly right. There was something like kind of tying back to my roots in agriculture. And like
Mm,
really, the food supply chain lives close to my heart. So to
hmm.
think that like my business is going to be like kind of the last stop on the food supply chain, like I'm going to get to deal with the customers who need the food after, in my early years more growing up with like the production side and like the farmers who are making the food, and now here I'm going to get to sell the food. Like it just made sense to me that of course it's a grocery store. Oh my gosh, like that's crazy. um and just the way he oh, this is a big piece of it too, because he was speaking my language as far as the little paragraph that he sent me of like his vision of what does he see this being or us doing or whatever. It started off with like, we're going to do rural grocery better than it's ever been done before. And I mean, it went on from there, but like right up front, I'm like, challenge accepted. That's the
Yeah.
kind of shit that I'm here to do, is like better than it's ever been done
Yes.
before. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I can deliver. I don't know if I could actually do it. I was also excited by the fact that I knew nothing about grocery, that like I did work at that grocery store when it was Ron's IGA in high school. That was one of my part-time jobs that I had for like a year.
Me
Was
too.
really at the grocery store
I worked at Bud's Thrifty Wise in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yep.
stacking groceries, customer
Yep.
service. Like it's a skill. That's a
Yeah,
skill set that transfers. It was a great job for a high school student. And
it was. Yeah.
so I had that memory of like, I've at least been a cashier at a grocery store. I've
Yeah.
never run one or built one, never built a business, but I think I can do this. And it's that kind of like naive optimism that really fuels so much of my story of like, I've had somebody, multiple people, in fact, as I've been on this grocery store part of the journey, where they're like, how did you even get into this position? Like, my contact at the grocery warehouse, the first time he ever met me, he's a very tall man. He looks down at me and he's shaking my hand and he didn't even introduce himself. He asked me, how'd you wind up in charge of all this? And I, like, that characterizes just my whole experience of like,
Yeah.
being handed this radical opportunity to get to do this. I mean, I'm like 28, 29 years old, and here's this gigantic project, and here's, the funding to make it happen. And I'm the project manager, I'm the creative designer, I get to make it. That was another big piece that really drew me
Hmm.
in, was that Chad was pretty clear on, he's got the finance piece covered and lined up, and that ball is already rolling, and like I don't need to worry about that. But like the creative part, like the design, the actually managing the store once it's there, getting it up and running, and then making sure that we are there once it goes, staffing and all of that, like that was what the position, that was the side that he had available, that he needs
It's
somebody
kind
who wants to take that.
it honestly sounds a little bit like the CDQA job in a way,
Yeah.
just in that like it's you obviously like to learn things as we've covered. You like to solve problems. And so that's what you were doing. You were
Yeah.
learning and solving problems. And so it was not software related, it was grocery related. And so you're completely have kind of no idea how the operation behind the operation works, but it's something that you can certainly conceptualize from the point of a customer. Like, you know how a grocery store operates, you know what needs to happen, you know what the kind of hallmarks of customer service are, because you've at least it's not a novel concept.
Yes.
So I don't know. That sounds kind of perfect, actually. I
Yeah.
bet I can
That's
see
how
how
it
that would be pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it felt at the time
Mhm.
was like, wow, like what a good fit. And there's no way I could have like come up with this myself as far as like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go open a grocery store. Like Chad wanted to open a meat store, like a fresh meat store in Holton that would be, hello, Kitty, that would be like an old fashioned meat counter.
Uh-huh.
And that like you'd get the meat out and wrap it in the white paper and send it home with the people. And like that's what he really wanted. And so he went looking in Holton for retail space for where could we put that fresh meat shop. And as he went through the real estate offerings that Holton had, one of the best ones was the old Ron's IGA building, this building that used to
Uh-huh.
be the grocery store, but that's way too big for just a
Mm,
fresh meat shop. But
sure.
if you wanted to do a whole grocery store in there, I mean,
Hmm.
that might be a real thing. And so he was kind of working on all of this, and I'm not exactly sure for how long, but I just think back to like, your business is ready for you. Your business is ready for you. Like, this idea cooked in his mind for a long time before he ever like
Yeah.
reached out to me and was like, hey, you want to think about doing this with me? So like when I was hearing your business is ready for you, your business is ready for you, it's like, I think I was hearing something, something that
Yeah.
was telling me
Sure.
like this is coming.
So, and I know we are getting close to time, but it's an interesting notion that, you had this opportunity where the funding was taken care of and you had a partner, but you had kind of, I guess, creative control over a lot of it or whatever. Excuse me, you poor kitty.
Oh, that kitty's
Um,
fine. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I guess I'm curious what Chad, you say, is that your cousin's name?
Hmm.
Like, was this his first run up that mountain, or has Chad started several businesses before?
Hmm. Started. He's a big business acquirer. He's acquired
Okay.
several
Okay.
businesses. But yeah, he had, well, his family is in production agriculture, like farming and
Uh-huh.
raising cattle and that sort of thing. So he still does a lot of that kind of thing. But then he had acquired meat processing
Okay.
lockers, including Yoder Meats, which is down
Hmm.
by Wichita, Kansas, and that
I
has
know it.
multiple facilities. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, he has several other business ventures that, like, as far as running a business, yeah, he's done that many times. Though I don't know if, like, starting so much from scratch, if he's done that a bunch of other times, it's not coming to mind, but I might be forgetting something there.
Oh, that's
But
great.
yeah,
That
that
sounds
was definitely a big piece of like, I've never done that before. I've never run a business myself before. So those were,
hmm
it actually reminds me of Tom's episode where he was talking about how he didn't feel ready to run the business. And that's why he didn't buy the family store when it came available for sale. Instead,
hmm
he went and like took business plan classes to like learn
Yeah.
more about how to do that. And that was one of the reasons that I felt so capable, was because Chad had a business background already. And I knew that
Yeah.
like my lack in that area wasn't going to be a big glary deal, hopefully. And it ended up being okay. And I learned
Yeah.
a lot from him in that time that we've been doing this. But yeah, that was, I can see why Tom wouldn't have wanted to go it alone had I not had the partner that was there. I would have
Sure.
felt a lot of those same hesitations of like, I am not
Yeah.
ready for this. But thankfully, it wasn't all on my shoulders. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit more of a natural break, and I bet
Yeah,
we are
go
coming up
ahead.
pretty close to 60 minutes. So,
Cool.
so
Well,
we'll
that's a
do an
cool
episode
thing.
4, but maybe we'll let these percolate a while. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a good place to like leave it off for a while, and we'll come back and we'll pick back up with like some more in the process of Cecil Case, because that was really fun, especially the building of the store
Yeah.
was
Oh
like
yeah.
very different than running a store. Let me tell you
Well,
that.
the name of the podcast is My Grocery Adventure, and we
Yeah,
just took 3 episodes just to get to your grocery adventure. So
I
I don't
know.
know. I
I
don't know
know.
how much longer we can make the people wait to
Oh
actually
man.
hear about your grocery adventure.
Well, let us know in the comments if you're dying to hear about it.
Oh, there you
Tell
go.
us, tell us about it. And we'll see. We'll see when we come back to finish the story, but we will. I promise.
I was just
Promise.
thinking, well, you're the showrunner, but you were one step ahead of me, and you were crowdsourcing that. So
Tell
pretty
us.
smart.
Tell us
Good
about it.
job.
Leave some comments. Drive the episode out into the algorithm. Leave your comments down below.
Yes.
Like the video, all the things.
True.
Yeah, I would love to tell the rest and we will get there, but there's also all of these other episodes that I have like in the pipeline now that are ready to
Yeah.
come out that we're going to hear other awesome stories. And like I told Will before we started recording, like I'm in no rush. I don't want to like, oh, squeeze it all down into just one more episode or whatever. Like, dude, we probably got like 3 or 4 more episodes to like really talk
Okay.
all about all of it. So yeah, I will come back with like another big chunk soon-ish, depending on how you define soon. And yeah, we'll do
All
it
right.
when it's time. And just know that like there's something telling me about timing and how I move and when it's the right time to do certain things. So it is
Well,
not the right
listen to
time to
that.
continue. Yeah, it will
Very
be
good.
someday.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Perfect.
Will, for
Thank
serving in
you.
this way, for
Oh
being
no.
my interviewer, making it so easy for me to tell my story. I have had so much fun in these first few
Yeah.
episodes. I'm very excited for the rest of the story whenever that
Oh
is.
yes, me too.
Yeah, it'll be done in fun. We can be assured of that.
Okay. Will you listen to what the things are that tell you what the timing should be, and I will then listen to you and just let me
Thank
know.
you. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Yeah, cool. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with other stories, other people's stories. I'm so excited for the guests that I already have some episodes like in the pipeline that are ready. And then I have lots of ideas of who am I going to reach out to next. The pipeline of potential guests is miles long. So yeah, one that really I'm excited about, but like all in good time, is Dr. Vincent. I would love to. I
Oh
knew him from
yeah.
before my
Ah,
grocery adventure, but like he was such a huge part of like me having the confidence to, I mean, even get here. So I would love to go step by step through his story. I think that would be
wow.
fascinating.
What a story too. I mean, I don't know him well at all, but just the little tiny bit I know him, like there's got to be some unusual steps in that journey for sure.
I can only imagine, the
Yeah.
2 years that I spent working with him, we would have like 6 hour conversations in his office
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
just up on the whiteboard drawing all the graphs, all the supply and demand charts that you could think of. And just like his life experience of like being born in Ghana and
Yeah.
working at the think tank in Canada and like just and then being a K-State professor, like, and there's a bunch more in between all of that, I'm sure. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a it's an incredible journey. And he's just a cool
Hmm.
human being in general.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting
He-
thinker. So yeah, I'm very excited. All of that to say, I'm very excited about the episodes that are coming, the guests that are coming. This is not the Carly show as much as I love telling my stories, but yeah, we'll get back to mine all in good time for sure.
Okay.
I thank everyone
Perfect.
for listening. Yeah, we will see you next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.